Hello, East Africa. It is the 8th day of February 2016. I'm Yvonne Okwara-Matole, and this is Bottom Line East Africa on KTN News, where you get the whole story. We cover the region in a way only we can. Right, today, 10 days to go, just about to the election in Uganda. We'll be speaking to the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission, gauging the preparedness of the country to go to the polls. Also, we'll be taking a look at efforts not just in Kenya but in the region at equality and bridging the gender divide. How is Kenya doing compared to her neighbors? Not very well, but why is it important? We'll be having that discussion right here on Bottom Line East Africa. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight. Kenya and Tanzanian authorities on a manhunt for rhino killers in the famed Masai Mara. Kenya women parliamentarians concerned about disproportionate gender representation. More ballot material arrives in Uganda ahead of the country's general election. We thank you for making the time to be with us tonight. A joint Kenyan and Tanzanian security operation to track down killers of a black rhino in the Masai Mara is underway. This follows the discovery of a male rhino carcass with missing horns near Sand River, barely 300 meters away from the Kenya-Tanzania border, by a Kenya Wildlife Service veterinary team conducting rhino ear notching. The ear notching for monitoring rhino movements is being jointly done by the KWS, Narok County in Kenya, and the Tanzania National Parks. Preliminary observations show that the rhino range covered both the Masai Mara National Reserve and adjacent Serengeti National Park. Authorities suspect the rhino was killed on Friday and appear to have come from the Serengeti side in Tanzania, as indicated by the trail in the disturbed long grass. The killed rhino is estimated to have been aged between 15 and 20 years. KWS in a statement expressed concern given the endangered status of the black rhino. Last year, Kenya lost 11 rhinos to poachers. I want to take you to Burundi now, where 4 people were killed in that country on Saturday night, including a child selling boiled eggs at a bar when 3 grenades hit the capital, Bujumbura. 9 months of violence sparked by President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term has left more than 400 people dead in a country that emerged from an ethnically charged civil war back in 2005. 12 people were injured in the latest blasts. At least 5 people, including security personnel, were killed in separate attacks on Friday. The armed group Republican Forces of Burundi, Forebu, which opposes Nkurunziza's bid, claimed on Saturday its fighters were involved in the Friday killings. The African Union said on Friday it had appointed 5 heads of state to try to convince the government of Burundi to accept a peacekeeping force that its leader has rejected. The AU Peace and Security Council announced plans in December to deploy a 5,000-strong force, saying it could invoke an article of the AU's charter that allowed it to intervene whether or not the government agreed. An elderly Australian woman kidnapped with her husband in Burkina Faso by a group affiliated to Al-Qaeda has been freed. She was presented at a press conference by the president of the neighboring Niger, Mamadou Issoufou. Issoufou presented the woman, Jocelyn Elliott, at a news conference in Dosso, southwestern Niger, and said authorities were intensifying efforts to secure the release of her husband. The pair was seized on January the 15th. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb said on Friday it had kidnapped the couple and would release the woman unconditionally due to public pressure and guidance from Al-Qaeda leaders not to involve women in war. The circumstances of her release and how she arrived in Niger were not immediately clear. For over 40 years, Dr. Ken Elliott and his wife, who are in their 80s, have operated a 120-bed clinic in the town of Djibo near Burkina Faso's border with Mali. The Elliots were abducted from the town the same day Al-Qaeda fighters raided a restaurant and hotel in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, and killed 30 people, many of whom were foreigners.
Have been working together, services in Niger and in Burkina Faso. And those efforts have led to a first result. Those who kidnapped the couple agreed to liberate the madame.
Kenya's power generation company expects a rights issue to be completed by the end of the financial year, June, as it seeks a joint venture partner for a 150 megawatt geothermal plant. Kenya was the first African country to tap geothermal power. It has the potential to produce 7,000 megawatts and is targeting a production of at least 5,000 megawatts by the year 2030. Here's Lilian Odera with that report.
Power producer Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KENGEN, aims to have regulatory approval for its planned rights issue by March, with a view of completing the transaction by June. In December, KENGEN said it planned to spend 160 billion shillings to add nearly 500 megawatts to the country's grid by 2017. Some of the funds will come from the rights issue already approved by its shareholders.
We expect to see the growth in demand, particularly as Kenya Power Lighting continue to work on the distribution system so that the power is stable and people are getting enough power. And we expect to see the investors then having confidence in coming to set up factories here, so that as we increase the capacity, we expect to see an uptick of this in a rapid way.
KENGEN, 70% state-owned, has previously said it wanted to raise 30 billion shillings to help restructure its balance sheet and finance expansion. Kenya, which relies heavily on renewable energy such as geothermal and hydropower, plans to raise installed capacity to about 6,700 megawatts by 2017 from about 2,500 megawatts. It also aims to cut the cost of bills, tackling problems regularly blamed for holding back Kenyan business. Mugo said KENGEN had also secured a loan of about $370 million to build another 140 megawatts geothermal plant known as Olkaria 5 from the Japan International Cooperation Agency JICA. Construction is expected to start in July and the plant to be on the grid by the end of 2018.
JICA has already provided about 370 million US towards the financing of Olkaria 5, which actually is the next big project that we're implementing. That project currently we are at a tender stage. We have already pre-qualified the contractors and we have sent the tender documents to JICA for approval.
KENGEN also expected to have a transaction advisory by mid-March to help it seek a joint venture partner to build a 150 megawatts geothermal power plant known as Olkaria 6 at a cost of between $400 to $500 million. High costs and power cuts are regularly blamed, making Kenyan business uncompetitive.
We have prepared the draft information memoranda. We are waiting for that to be approved by the board. And our target is to submit it to CMA before the end of this month. So we are making good progress, of course, with our target of being able to conclude the rights issue before the end of this financial year.
KENGEN is also planning a 100 megawatts wind project in central Meru County using 100 million euros in financing from French and German development institutions. Lilian Odera, KTN News.
Now, in what might signal a gradual return of law enforcement machinery to the locals, the head of the AU mission to Somalia, Ambassador Francisco Madera, has handed over a new police station to the Somali federal government. The new station at the Aden Abdullah Airport in Mogadishu has replaced an older 40-year structure that initially served the airport. This comes as AU's Military Operations Coordination Committee convened in Nairobi Monday to discuss Somalia's security situation.
Aden Abdullah Airport, Mogadishu. AU and AMISOM heads arrived for the official handover of a new police station to bolster Somali police's institutional capacity.
Similar to any other international airport in the world, this airport presents a potential target for terrorism and other forms of destabilization and crime. This airport police station is therefore expected to provide a wide range of law enforcement duties.
The station, set up at a cost of $333,000 by AMISOM, courtesy of funding from the government of Turkey, replaces an older station that could no longer withstand current security challenges.
Having a professional policing capability at this airport will create the feeling of safety and security of the locals and visitors on entering Somalia, thus making them feel comfortable with regards to their safety throughout Somalia.
The rehabilitation and upgrade of Aden Abdullah Airport Police Station is part of the measures undertaken by AMISOM to boost the Somali federal government's ability to assume full responsibility in keeping law and order in a country that has known no peace for almost 3 decades.
We at AMISOM remain committed to assisting the Somali people achieve a lasting peace, security, and stability.
AMISOM has been working on quick improvements to professionalize Somalia's security machinery, even as it continues to face threats from Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, and newer terror outfits like ISIL. Still on Somali issues, AU's Military Operations Coordination Committee met in Nairobi on Monday to discuss Somalia's security situation. The delegation that included Ambassador Madeira, Commissioner for Peace and Security at the AU, Major General Mohamedesha Zeinu, met to evaluate Somalia's security situation and craft strategies for combating terrorism and insurgencies in Somalia. AU forces first landed in Somalia in 2007, but have lately been on delegating vital security operations to the federal government of Somalia. Mark Namaswa, KTN News.
All right, I want to stay in Somalia now and give you an update on a story we gave you here last week on Bottom Line East Africa. A suspected suicide bomber who blew a hole in the fuselage of a Dalo Airlines plane last week and forced it to make an emergency landing in Mogadishu was meant to be on a Turkish Airlines flight. The bomber was sucked out of the plane through the 1-meter wide hole when the blast ripped open the pressurized cabin in midair. The pilot landed the plane in the Somali capital from where it had taken off. No group has so far taken responsibility for the attack, but a U.S. government source last week said the United States suspects Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab, which is aligned to Al-Qaeda, was responsible for that blast. Meanwhile, CCTV footage released by the Somali National Intelligence Agency appears to show 2 airport workers inside the terminal handing the suicide bomber a laptop stuffed with explosives. Al-Shabaab, which wants to topple the government and impose a harsh version of Islamic law, has targeted the airport in the past. It has also attacked the Turkish embassy in Mogadishu.